All right, everybody. Thank you for our next or joining us for our next episode of the Prop Tech Genius Show. And Christian, this is what happens. You get on my show and I flatter you. I call you a genius. So you are the
Yeah.
next genius that I get to talk to, which is so awesome. I hope this is not the only time you've ever been called a genius, but you are here. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to talk with Christian. Christian is you're like a big wig at Choice, New York, right? Which you're a big property management
So,
company.
so I was with Choice New York as vice president of maintenance. I'm currently
Mhm.
with Seraphim Equities as director of real estate.
Look at
So
that. See?
still in real estate and kind of navigating the struggles of it.
That's cool. And you were maintenance. So yeah, that's like the biggest hot topic nowadays, especially with all the ESG mandates and all the other crazy things that people are throwing at us. So
Of
this will
course,
be a
yeah.
fun conversation. This will be great. All right, cool. So I will give you a chance to kind of tell everybody who you are. I'm Amy Palvido. I'm the chairwoman of the U.S. PropTech Council, and this is my show. But I've got Christian on, and we're going to get into all things property management, maintenance, and all sorts of fun stuff. So, all right. So, Christian, take it away.
Yep. So Kristian Mundija, 12 years in real estate and property management. And I've had my share of fun and excitement in the industry. And, when I started 12 years ago, there was definitely not as much tech as there is now. And
Mhm.
that's, on the back end of property management, but also on the field side and facilities and maintenance and things like that. So, it's really interesting, in the last 4 years. And I think especially, since, the early on COVID and the height of COVID, there's a lot more prop tech companies out there that came out and started kind of offering services to make life easier for the everyday property manager, but also facilities manager as well.
For sure. I mean, I think it's prop tech is a real new industry. I mean, I guess the property management systems have been around forever and people have navigated outside of those systems to get their work done. I was a multifamily property manager for a while and I had single family rentals and so I was that person that had 16 logins and all this other
Yeah.
stuff just to get your job done. And it still seemed like there was not enough solutions at that time to get everything done like that could be done. So I think it's truly a blue ocean. So in your role now, you're director of real estate now is what you're doing. So
Yes.
what is it, operations? Is it maintenance still? What are you managing?
It's it's full operations, multifamily properties. That's what
Okay.
I've always done. We
Yeah.
have, quite a few commercial assets, and we're on the owner operator side. So it's a
Okay.
lot of distressed properties that we take, we renovate, and that's really good because you get early onto the property on the renovation side. So you're kind of able to pick and choose, the efficiencies and the mechanical
Mhm.
systems and things like that, which is much better than, being thrown into a property who's already pre-existent and everything that's on there might not be as efficient, but now you have to learn the ins and outs of it.
For sure, for sure. So when you're doing your takeovers or let's talk takeovers or let's talk this because takeovers are like nightmarish.
Of course.
So have you found any sort of technology that helps you like during a takeover? Like besides you got your property management system that gets all light up, but as you're developing out your CapEx projects or what do you use there? I'm just curious on as far as
I
technology.
mean, as far as technology goes, we rely a lot like on Asana or kind of, kind of like checklist based systems, really.
Yeah.
Nothing too high end, but something so simple.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on who your property management software is, a lot of times it can offer some add-ons or additional services, to make your life easier. But
Mm-hmm.
the takeover has its struggles in the beginning, right? It's a lot of due diligence, and it's going to take a lot of you know, um, brain power and individual people involved to kind of get everything set up right before you can import it into the system.
Mm-hmm.
I think with the takeovers, I really haven't found much tech out there that's going to make,
Right.
property takeovers easy for you. You still need the individual leases. You need the individual information. There's a lot of, piecemeal info you need to kind of build out that property in your system.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know there's some new solutions coming out, but it is kind of one of those it's the broken process, right? You go do your due diligence on a property and then you choose to buy it, and then you just spend a little bit of time initially up front on all data collection on all that due
Yeah.
diligence, but then it never translates over into operation. So you get into takeover and it feels like you're doing it all over again, right? And so yeah, so but there are some new solutions coming out, but to kind of fix that process for sure. So where are you, how many properties are y'all managing now? What do you guys got going on up there?
So right now we have about, 1,000 plus units, all owner
Okay.
operator. We have, a few more hundred units that are under construction or so that are coming live. And
Uh-huh.
so it's getting busy now. I was much busier when I was at Choice, and Choice I think has well over 10,000 units, bigger
Hmm.
properties, but it was all on the third party side, right? So we were
Yeah,
managing on behalf of other funds and other
right.
different firms, owner operators, co-op condos. So kind of getting onto the construction side now, and being hands-on a day to day, it's a little bit different again because you can kind of tailor how you want things to be, and being on it for so long, you know where the shortcuts are and how to take them.
For sure. Yeah, yeah, no, that's for sure. And it's nice, the owner operators tend to have more integrated systems, right? Because they're on the buying side, right? It's not third party, so you have the
Yeah.
different kind of reporting. So it's nice to kind of get the visibility from the beginning to the end of the process, right? That yeah, a former
Yeah,
owner.
I think it's the control factor, having
Yeah.
control of the process from start to finish. Where on
Yeah.
third party, it's good. You have control to a certain point, but you still have to go back, ask for permission, figure things out, get information from somebody. It's,
Mhm.
by the time you get something, you already moved on to two, three different things, and it kind of, sets you back a little bit.
Yeah, 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 for sure. So, as far as if you had like a little wish list and you could say, I wish there was technology to do meh, what would meh be? There's probably like a long laundry list, right? But yeah.
There's I think there is. I think, right, breaking it down, right? Let's take facilities, right?
Mhm.
I think technology that kind of integrates with all your facility needs, right? I think there's a lot of companies that do, they're good at one thing or two
Right.
things, right? But they're not good at the whole factor, right?
Hmm.
If you're a monitoring company, you're probably good at monitoring HVAC, right? But you're not monitoring, electric, gas, water, right? Other factors. So, I think having like a one-stop shop that can monitor your facility needs and where your waste is, I think that's important on the facility side. And then on the back end administrative side, I think majority of the property management softwares do that for you. There could be some better integrations, on certain things, but no one is perfect. But I think focusing on where the money bleeds, and that's the facility side. That's where your waste is. And factoring how that works. I think that's something that'd be a wish list for me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, very cool. Okay. Well then, I might have something for you, which is okay. That's awesome. All right, very cool. So, what are the biggest challenges that you face? I mean, you're in New York. All the properties that you are in New York. Is
Yeah,
there
New
any
York.
sort of like I know that there's new regulations that are coming out. What are you facing on a daily basis? I'm just curious as far as change
So
to how you have to operate.
So I think the biggest thing right now is local law 97. That's the biggest scare, right? The whole carbon emission.
Hmm.
This is, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm very good with compliance. I believe this is pretty much the last benchmark that you'll have,
Oh,
where that you're supposed to kind of do repairs and upgrades to your property. I believe next year, by the next benchmarking cycle, there's going to be fines associated with properties.
wow.
So it's that's the biggest drive, and that leads to a lot of things, right? Facility upgrades, electrical,
Hmm.
general repairs, things like that. So I think that this is the biggest factor in New York City right now, that everyone is kind of scared. If you're the ground up development, I think it's important to look and factor methods that's going to be efficient for your property, where you're not bleeding money, and you're also keeping your letter grade and your carbon output at a certain level. And if you have an older property, you know getting in, early and utilizing these NYSERDA incentives and Con Ed incentives up here. Wherever you can get free money, out of the whole Green New, the Green New Deal aspect that came out, wherever you can, I think it's important for you to go and utilize that and capture as much as you can because it's going to get pricey, especially for the older properties.
Oh, for sure. I mean that I would just doze it. Like I mean, like at some point, it's like it's just going to be so insane to get it to meet whatever it is. It's interesting. Yeah, I was back in the day. I guess it was during COVID, and I was looking at. I was in Texas, and I was a multifamily owner, and I got thrown this deal where there was like a family that was selling. They had a lot of real estate and it was kind of all over in the kind of a couple boroughs in New York. And I was like, I'll fly up there. I'll see what's going on, right? I'll go check it out, right? And there was like 7 properties or something. So I spent the whole day with this broker walking around. There was a 4-story walk up in Chinatown, and then there was a larger, like 78 unit over in kind of near Astoria. And then there was like this property over in Queens, and then this property over here, and a property over here. And so I spent the whole day riding around looking at these properties, and I was amazed at just the varying ages. Like, they talk about pre-war, and then they're talking like pre-World War One, y'all, not like World
Yeah.
War Two. I mean, so New York has some really, really old buildings, and just getting in there and the systems they have, and the heat systems, and it's crazy to upgrade all of that. It's insane for sure. I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, no, definitely. With New York, I feel like every building has its own story in New
I
York.
know.
From the
Yeah.
day it's built to now, and and everything varies in New York, from the height, right? You go from a 6-story to a 7-story, all of a sudden you're in local law 11, right? And for New York landowners, property owners and stuff, they know the cost of that, right? Every 5 years you have local law 11, right? That's thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? An
Crazy.
elevator building, it's different filings every year, right? If you have hot water heaters that burn 360,000 BTUs or more, it's yearly filings and triennial filings, which is more so depending on how the building make is and the age of it and the height from the square footage, right? You're above 25,000 square feet, local law 133, your benchmark. You're above 50,000, local law 84 of 133, which you're still benchmark. So you're above 100,000 square feet, local law 87, which is every 10 years, but it's going to cost you 15, $20,000 to do energy audit for the property. So depending on the size, there's so many factors that can change your property. I think that's why in New York, the whole third party market, and a lot of things, the bigger cities, like third party is a big market in the property management side because standalone owners, or if you're if you're someone who's just an investor or you're just buying properties, you need a whole team to manage all this and have systems in place that are going to monitor, because one wrong filing or one no filing is going to cost you a lot of money.
Oh,
And
for sure. Yeah. And I was like, so all the properties I was looking at were rent stabilized, right? Because every property
that's
after
that's its own
over
and
a
that's its
certain
own
age,
challenge. Yeah.
it's its own challenge. Like, you can't raise the rents, but they're asking you to spend all this money. So I looked at it, I was like, I can't make any money on this. Like, there's just no way. And a lot of the owner, they had gone through and made all those improvements and raised the rents to the max
Yeah.
that they could raise them to, like the previous year. So I'm like, well, what, there's no value add here. The only thing I can do is update certain things. So I'm like, it's so interesting. That whole experience of understanding what that was going to look like to be a multifamily owner in New York was quite an experience for sure. Like, just even to go look at it and do a due diligence. And then I'm just
Yeah.
like, I was rolling. I was like, so I need the square footages of the units, and they're like, yeah, we don't got them. I'm like, what?
They definitely don't. Yeah.
I was like, how am I supposed to underwrite this? I need square footages. Like,
And,
nah,
and and depending on when the building was probably built, there's no CO on file either,
no.
at times.
Yeah. I'm just
So, sometimes as a landlord, you want that. You don't want a CO on file because then you can go out and,
yeah, I know, right? So we gotta fly under the radar.
but we're not
Yeah.
promoting that. We're not promoting that. We're promoting,
But it was definitely a
yeah.
different, way of doing stuff. I was just like amazed. And I went through it, and I was like, well, I can't do anything if I don't have the square footages. Like everything's done by square footage. It's like, well, it was so funny. The broker's like, well, if you want to get out a tape measure and you want to measure, like we don't have them. And it was
Yeah.
also another, is a family of like 14 people. No one was, it was a nightmare. Once I found out it was a family of 14 people, nobody was
Oh,
gonna be
that's yeah.
fine. I'm like, see ya, out of here, deuces. Like, like, no, no, for sure. So, so when you the 97, there's you threw out a lot of bills and a lot of
Yeah,
numbers. I like I can keep track, but 97 is the one around the carbon emissions, right? So
correct. Yeah.
where is everybody kind of what's the first strategy, I guess, to kind of meet that? What are people doing? I'm just curious.
Well, I think, I mean, whoever got started early on as far as building upgrades, right? So, lighting upgrades, making systems more efficient. Whoever got, started early on, they're probably in a better position now.
Mhm.
Whoever didn't start till now or whoever's waiting, until they benchmark this year to see where they stand. I think the good thing is a lot of these companies that benchmark your properties now will kind of give you a GHG, emission. But again, it's for your previous year. So that doesn't really help you, right? Because
Yeah,
you're benchmarking 2023 and right now we're, halfway to 2024.
yeah.
So, if you're a certain percent above your threshold or where you need to be in 2025, for the filing, then, automatically you're already behind, you're behind the race essentially. So, you're halfway into 2024 and you're already, the numbers don't look too great and these fines are escalating, then it really gives you only a few months to to do repairs so that when they file in 2025, which is for this year, 2024's usage, you can try to lower your energy waste in a certain way. And I think this is when all these this new prop tech stuff has to come into place now. I sit on the board of a company called Get Savvy, which just got acquired. Now they're called the Carbon Shield, and it's pretty much like live monitoring or your carbon emission, right? So
Oh.
it monitors all your usages live. It translates it into a formula that's based
Mhm.
on the state and city standard, and it lets you know where you stand. So as you're
Mm.
making these upgrades, right? In being a property manager, you get all these beautiful charts and these Excel sheets, and it's like this is what your savings are in 6 months to a year, right? And you're like, well, I got to put in $500,000, and okay, I'm going to get it back in 3-4 years, but that's not going to help me next year, right? So it's like, what do we
Yeah.
do? And I think similar to Savvy or Carbon Shield now, like companies that are out there similar to them. The good thing is that if you're able to let these property owners monitor live and see where they stand on a day to day or on a month to month, it's a big help, right? Because as you do these upgrades, you're able to see, okay, this is where I'm saving. Okay, I did these lighting upgrades. They help my carbon output way more than I did this installation work. And what else do I need to do? So there's a lot of factors that go into it, but I don't think anyone will make their, especially if it's an older pre-war building,
Yeah.
even pre-war, after war, whatever you want to call it at this point.
Yeah.
It's you have to put money into it, and if you wait for the last minute, you know a lot of owners are going to be in trouble. I mean, I've seen, being on the board of Savvy, just kind of seeing reports and stuff of some properties in New York City. You see the fines, and you're like, oh my God, like it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt the bottom dollar.
Yeah, for sure. So it's called Carbon Shield now. Is that what it's
Yeah,
called?
carbon chill.
So do they give suggestions to the owners on this? You probably want to do this versus this. I mean, does it help
Yeah.
prioritize?
So
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
yes, so I think based on usages, depending on how you map out your building, you can
Mm-hmm.
specify. You can monitor electrical, you can monitor gas, you
Mm-hmm.
can monitor water, and they're kind of able to to break down and let you know where
Yeah.
where your waste is essentially.
Okay. That's cool. That's awesome. When did Savvy get acquired? When was that?
I believe it was a few months ago. Originally, I started during
Oh,
COVID. It started
wow.
during COVID. That's how I got involved with them. It was kind of just helping them, because essentially they were a company to help with like Airbnb usages. And I was like, that's good. But, in New York City, Airbnb, it's illegal. That's one thing, depending on who you are as a landlord, but, it's kind of just letting them know about the law and where everything
Mhm.
stands. And then they kind of build the platform around it.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very, very
So,
cool. That's good to see that. You're still on the board now with them?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
still with them. The company that acquired them, we work with them on energy stuff. The company is called Kodakon Group,
Uh-huh.
and they kind of rebranded the whole Savvy platform, which is good. I mean, heading to where we're going now,
Yeah.
I don't think there's plenty of tech out there, and you just got to find the right one that works for you.
Yeah, 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 for sure. So, when you've got a couple of things under development, you said, right? A couple of units under development. What are you facing as far as, or what are you seeing as far as tech in that kind of in the construction and development side that y'all are exploring? Are you exploring any new tech in that area or not?
When you say tech, you say like, what do you mean by
Around
like monitoring
construction,
or?
around the construction part of it, or just anything. Are y'all, what are y'all using for the technology on the development side? I'm just curious.
Right now, nothing. We're still navigating to see what's out there.
Okay.
The goal is to definitely make buildings and properties, smarter in the sense, right? So add smart tech, leak detections, things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
and make sure they're efficient and and you're able to get a return on it essentially. And then also, you know, for the units that are pre-existing that fully renovating, it's figuring out if you do all this stuff, you know, how does that, offset with your insurance premiums, right? If I had leak detection on my
Right.
property,
Right.
do I get a discount in my insurance because I'm able to prevent, you're going to get some damage,
Mm-hmm.
but is it easier to prevent, 1,000 gallons of damage or 5,000 gallons of water that's coming out? So it all
For
varies
sure.
on, and I think being smart about it and keeping your properties up to date, I think it's key.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All that new tech around, the fire cutoffs for like the stoves, right? There's where that most of the fires that happen in any sort of housing are from kitchen fires.
Yeah,
And now there's a new technology that will allow you to if it senses like it's like cooking too long, it'll cut it off. And so that they reduce the number of kitchen fires, which is like one of the largest sources of fires in housing. And then the water, same thing. If there's a leak and it detects a leak, it'll cut it off, right? And so now that you can get that technology, it's really asset protection. It used
of
to be it's
course.
like it's an IoT device, but no, now really it's you're protecting your asset, right, from a fire and from a leak that's going to cause. And so a lot of the insurance companies are starting to play ball and starting to look at those things and see how they can really help the owners save some money because insurance and multifamily, oh, shoot me in the face, it's horrible, it's so
Of
awful.
course.
I mean, it's gone up 3 4 times in a couple of years. It's like I can't.
Yeah, I
Mm-mm.
think ever since the whole Surfside incident in Florida, rates
Yep.
went up and they never went down after that,
Yeah,
especially
they
in New
didn't.
York.
Yeah, they didn't. We in Texas, so I'm in Texas. We had the largest insurer pull out of the market. They stopped
Wow.
renewing folks and they just didn't issue any new business. So we had one of the major insurers leave. And part of it was all the snowpocalypse claims. Like we had, like, y'all are used to all that,
The
freezing
grid, the
weather
grid.
stuff. We don't know what to do with that when it comes down here. Like, we're like, what? What? So our whole electrical grid shut down.
I know. I was watching the news and I'm like, real drive trucks in Texas, they're not working in the snow.
No, no, they were not working. No, there was just like, yeah, it was, I know I look, I went to school at Purdue. I'm in Indiana, so I like get it. So I'm like, all the Yankees are laughing at us Texans. They're all just like, what are y'all jokers doing? Like, but it was horrible. I remember it. I was inside my house. We had no heat. It was 0 degrees outside. It was 45 degrees inside my house, and it was cold and we didn't have a fireplace and we had no electricity for days. And I'm going to visit my mother and going outside in my car to charge my phone and
Yeah,
it was
that's a
special.
normal day. That's a normal day here.
I know. I know. I visit New York a lot, so I get it. But yes, I mean, yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, all these Yankees are laughing at us right now. This is like so damn funny. But yeah, so there's a lot of losses, right? There's more hurricanes, more weirdo things. New York had apparently lightning struck the Statue of Liberty, and then it had an earthquake y'all had an earthquake, right? That was
Yeah,
kind of weird. And yeah, so it was kind of funny. It's like somebody's like, "Who's playing Jumanji? Like, what's going on? Like,
it's
what's happening
times are
in New York?"
changing.
Times
Times are changing.
are changing. Did you feel the earthquake? Did you feel it?
Yeah, yeah, I was driving. I felt it, slightly, but my wife was
Really?
actually home and she was with the kids and she called me. She was like, I was actually on the phone with her. And she's like, something's happening. I said, no, you're fine. And then I hung up with her, and then I got, maybe within a span of 3 minutes, like 120 text messages from on this tenant chat at one of the properties, and like one tenant's in Hudson Yards, one tenant's in Harlem, one tenant's in Brooklyn, and it was like, the earthquake hit here, earthquake hit here. I was like, oh, there's an earthquake. Then I called my wife. I said, you should probably get out of the house now. So,
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine. Like, yeah, New York is
luckily there
not
was,
prepared
yeah,
for an earthquake.
luckily there was no damages.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was no, I don't think there was any
Yeah.
damages or anyone, I mean, some people probably try to report some damages here and there. That long-standing crack they had on the wall, they try to,
Oh yeah,
pin it on
for
the
sure.
earthquake.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's the good thing about when you get two property managers on a call together, all the stories, like all the
Yeah,
crazy stories, like it just gets
all the
so
tenant
damn
stories,
funny. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the tenant stories, the weirdo people stories, because it's really truly adult daycare. I mean, like
of
at,
course.
most of the time, it's adult
Listen,
daycare.
there's one thing I say: just when you think you've seen it all, you heard it all,
Uh-huh.
and then you get that one phone call, and you're like, wow,
I
you
know.
know,
I
and
know.
it's it keeps it interesting.
It does. It does for sure. And yeah, I don't know how technology is going to solve all of the crazy things, but no, I had someone show up with this was in Houston, and they just drove up on my properties with an assault weapon, shooting it up in the air. And I'm like, okay, we really need it. Like, why haven't we fixed that gate yet? Like, how did they get onto our property? They're special. Yeah,
They're
yes.
probably asking for a rent concession. That's all.
Probably, they're chasing some, it was all drug related, I'm sure. Like, I don't know, all the things you learn about the
Yeah,
fuse on the wires and like all these weird things that you learn. I'm like, what? Oh yeah, there's a drug dealer there. I'm like, what? Okay, all
yeah.
right.
You see it all. You see it all.
You see it all. It's crazy town. Yeah, for sure. So, when you're since you're a customer, this is really good for all the prop tech founders and stuff. When you're evaluating a new technology, when you're looking at a new one, what is your like? How do you process that? Is it like, oh, thank God it's here. Okay, let's go through that. Do you actually will look at different separate ones and do like comparisons and like,
Yeah,
hey, we need a solution for this? That'd be kind of interesting to understand for most folks,
of
right?
course. Yeah, I think it's figuring out what problem you're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Figuring out the problem, right? If it's on the operation side or if it's on the day to day, or it could be whatever. And how does this technology help? How does it compare to other things that are out there?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the biggest factor is, what's out there that can do multiple things, right? Maybe, this company can do, A, D, and E well, right? But not B and C, who can do B and C, but maybe, dabble into E, and then figure out, because the goal is to get as less, logins and as less platforms as possible, right? So I think really being able to, and I don't think you're going to find the one company that does it all. You're going to
Yeah.
have multiple, platforms, but
Mm-hmm.
it's limiting it where to now property managers probably have, between, logins for their properties and, the general, doorbells, smart systems to back
Yep.
end platforms. You probably have well over, in cases 5 to 10, different platforms, in multiple properties, or some properties might have multiple platforms. And it's like, how do you keep track of all that?
Yeah, that's insane for sure. I know. So when you're so say you choose a platform and we're like, yep, we're gonna go with this one. What do you do as the customer to help with on the adoption side? What do you expect from a tech company to help you get it adopted and into your company and into your processes? It's really cool for companies to kind of hear from the
Yeah.
customer what they're
So
expecting.
of course, so once you figure out the product, definitely beta test, a property or two. and figure out kinks. One thing when you have multiple properties, you don't want to roll something out fully,
Sure.
and then I don't want to say it backfires, but you haven't figured out the kinks yet. You haven't figured out how your staff is going to adapt to it. But I
Mhm.
think starting off with a beta test, is a great way to get going. Figure it out the back end. How's it going to integrate with whatever else you have, the kinks of it, and then slowly roll it out, property by property or location by location, and
Mhm.
then get those team members onboarded, right? Because I think the biggest thing with tech is companies will implement tech, but then their staff is not up to date with it, and then it just sits
Right.
there, right? You pay the
Right.
subscription fee, and you don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So, once you onboarded, and then you already done your due diligence to figure out what problems is going to solve for you. So you
Hmm.
automatically know why you chose them, what they're going to do for you, and then slowly, integrate it into each property, depending on, how it's gonna work.
Yeah. So how do you get your staff to get on board? Right. That sometimes that's the hardest challenge is getting them to use the stupid thing. And then some teams will just revolt. They're like, yeah,
Yeah,
you threw this at us. Hopefully you don't do that. But there's been I've heard stories
yeah.
where
No,
other
of
property
course.
managers they just throw it at you and then they're like, you figure it out, right? And that's
Yeah.
the
No,
option. That's the
I think
training.
I think it's
Figure it
yeah.
out.
No, it's the training process.
Yeah.
you know for your team, letting them know, hey, this is what it's going to make life easy for you. It's going to do this, this, and this,
Yeah.
and explain that to them. And listen, as an employer, or higher up, you can mandate it and say this is what we're doing, and that's final. But I really think kind of working with your team, and making sure they understand why it's there and how it's going to make their life easier. Explain that to them might work. And listen, it's not going to work with 100%, but if you're able to capture a majority of your team, and then the other people have no choice but to jump on board when everybody's using it and everybody's utilizing it, and they're required to be on it as well.
Hmm. Have you found that having an internal person that's like your super user, does that help in the adoption of it, or is it not really necessary? Like having a person that
It
everybody out kind of asks questions to, does that help or no?
Yes and no. It all depends on the platform.
Yeah.
You know, it, yeah, I mean, depending on the platform, it could, you can have a single person that's spearheading it,
Hmm.
or there's going to be, then you're working with whoever the company is, and kind of training through them. So it
Yeah.
all varies on the technology.
Mhm.
It depends, because in property management, you have multiple departments, right? Like this tech is probably best for the property management side, but then the accounting and the leasing and
Right.
other departments are not going to have a use for it, right? So depends on how you want to allocate your resources and who you're putting on to spearhead the training, or the process behind it.
True. True. It's interesting. Has there been any sort of technology in the last 5 years that you went, oh, that's actually really cool, and like it surprised you how good, how useful it was? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I was so Carson. I don't know if you're familiar with Carson.
Mm-mm.
Carson is kind of like a virtual doorman through like your phone, but they're really, what I liked about them is their digital key system and their integration with like other door hardware, right?
Yeah.
So you could send digital keys to your tenants, new moving tenants. And I was really interested by it, just kind of like, changes the way real estate's working, and the multifamily side, where you can take people can issue digital keys. You have someone coming in, you can send them a key for the day. So I was really interested by that in their platform. And I
Yeah.
think what they have done, because I remember when they first started out, they were kind of just, your smart tech, front door buzzer system. And now what they're doing is pretty great. I mean, people can pay rent through their platform, work orders, messages, community chats. It's really interesting.
So it's just very tenant facing, right? So they're managing the tenant communication piece really,
Yes.
and then access control, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. Interesting, very interesting. Have you seen any facial recognition or anything yet in any of your stuff?
Not, Nothing yet. Nothing that we've entertained.
Yeah, that's interesting. So where do you think is the biggest need now for property managers, like the biggest next the thing that tech really needs to address? Other than you talked about the integration piece of it, right? getting a better sight of what's happening on your buildings. But what else do you think is like a big need for property managers?
I mean, I think facilities, anything in regards to facilities,
Mhm.
that's where properties bleed money, and if you're not, I understand the monitoring part, but then like the action part as well, right? How do you make these facilities smarter, right? Whether you implement some type of AI or smart controls or things like that. I
Mhm.
think that's going to be the key factor.
So anything around building performance or anything around how the building is operating
Yeah,
itself?
that's
Yes. Okay.
that's yeah, especially New York. I mean, that's where that's where you're bleeding money.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Okay. That's awesome. Well, it's been a really cool conversation, man. This has been awesome.
Yeah,
I
very
love
interesting.
it. I love getting this perspective from the like property manager, like kind of like this is kind of what we're seeing, what we need. And you've been on a board helping a prop tech company, so
Yeah,
that's
so
really cool too.
it was fun. It's been very fun because I mean, I love tech, but when I got involved, it was very interesting the way things are done, and going into meetings with them and seeing how they deal with things on the tech side is very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's a different world, right? I mean, you're going from one to
Yeah,
the other. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I came from real estate and management and owning and all that other stuff into tech. So it's been quite, a learning curve. It's fun and it's great. It's
yeah,
very different for sure. It's very, very different for sure. No, 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 it's great. It's awesome. Well, if somebody wanted to reach out to you and say, "Hey, I have a question about or whatever," or like, "Hey, I'm coming to New York, whatever, hit me up, let's go get a drink." How would they get a hold of you?
yeah. They can reach me out on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
I don't want to give all my cell phone, but you can also email me.
yeah,
K Mundija, Mundija @gmail.com. And, if you come to New York and you want to know, how to navigate things, or if you're an owner who, needs help with something, send me an email, reach out to me in LinkedIn, and I'd certainly be able to help out. I mean, doing it for 12 years,
yeah,
I've seen my share of challenges, and, I'm kind of able to navigate and get to the problem quickly.
yeah. Very cool. Well, it's been such a cool conversation. I appreciate you coming on,
Thank you,
and
Amy.
yeah, I love the whole New York experience of the all the bills and regulations. That's awesome. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right.